What we're going to look at in this video is the shape tool, how to create shapes, how to manipulate them, and what to kind of do with them. So the first thing is let's get your shapes. So you can see here, so the default usually looks like this, it's a rectangle. If I want to get other shapes, any toolbar that has, or any tool in a tool palette that has these little arrows into it means there's more shapes. So if I click and hold, I can get these shapes. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to tear this off, which means if I click on this little thing, it gives me a little kind of like sub palette. And this is good because I'm just going to draw tons of shapes with this. So the shape tool is generally pretty straightforward. So if I want to draw with the rectangle, right, you can see the rectangle tool is here. And what I'm going to color with is what's inside here. So we have fill, which is the front, and stroke. So let's just kind of go over. If I have this orangey color and black, you can see I'm going to get a black box with an orange stroke. Now we'll get to this later, but you can see I can up my stroke by here, and you can see I can kind of create that. Now at any time, if you want to get rid of any one of those, you can hit the little slash that's here and it'll take that away. So now it's just a filled shape. If I just want an outline shaped, you can see I can just swap these, and now I have just an outlined shape that's there. So one thing with the square or rectangle tool is if I do want to create a square, if I hold down shift, you can see I get a square. It kind of locks the proportions, and this we'll be using a lot in Illustrator is that shift key. If I let go of that shift key, it allows me to kind of make any kind of boxed rectangle that I want. One thing to notice in the inside of the square is if I want to make this rounded, you can see these little corner, little radius here. I can click and hold, and I can make those rounded. If you decide for whatever reason you want one of those to be straight or one of those to be more, all I have to do is use, right? So if I use the white arrow tool and I kind of just click and drag over top of this corner, I get this back, and you can see I can make this go in even more. So if we have that shape from the start that's here and you decide, you know what, I only want this corner, use the white arrow tool, click that corner, and you can see I can just change one of them. And I could come over here and I could select this one, and now I have an interesting shape. So the circle tool or the ellipse tool does just that, right? I can make an ellipse, or I can hold down shift and make a perfect circle. Now, a couple things inside of Illustrator, if I really want to kind of grab this, is just use the black arrow tool and kind of click and drag, click and drag. Generally, I tell people to grab from the center dot here because Illustrator can be a little finicky of how it grabs it. So grab from that center, and there we go. So the Polygon tool, so by default, I believe it makes a 6-sided polygon. You can see it's 6 sides. If at any time you wanted to change that, there's this little diamond that's here. If I click up, you can see I'm getting less sides. That's the way I can make a triangle. Or if I wanted more sides, you can see as I drag down, it adds sides. Okay, so I'm just going to click and drag over top of that with the black arrow and hit the delete key. If I wanted to do something more specific, I knew exactly I wanted to make a triangle, I can just click anywhere, and you can see I can click 3, and it makes a triangle. Now, incidentally, you can click anywhere on here and that menu will pop up. So I'm just using my rectangle, and you can say, you know what, I want a 3 by 3 square, and there it is, right? So the only one that's a little bit different as far as just how it's used is the star tool, only because there's a little bit more functionality in the star tool. So by default, this is kind of the star that Illustrator makes. This kind of fat star that's there. If I make this star, right, I hold down shift to constrain the proportions so it's upright. If I hold the command key down, you can see I can alter this star to be kind of whatever I want it to be. Now this is all doing it within 5 sides. So I can really kind of manipulate that to where I want that star to be. Now this is where it gets a little weird with the star tool. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to say, you know what, I want a 30-point star. but maybe I wanted to change the radius and I didn't want it to be like this. So I just deleted that, right? So now it remembers the 30 points. I'm gonna hold down Shift to constrain it so it locks it. And then I'm gonna hold down the Command key and I'm just gonna bring these pieces in, right? So now you have more of this certificate seal kind of feeling to it, or saw blade if that's what you're going for. Or I'm gonna do that same thing again, hold down Shift, and then I'm gonna hold Command down and I'm gonna bring it a little bit more in, giving me this kind of starburst effect. So that's the only real thing you're kind of dealing with that's a little bit different is the star tool. And then the line tool, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. If I hold down Shift, it goes straight. By default, there is no stroke that's on there, so we're just gonna go ahead and click that to give it a color. Now you could change this color anywhere in here to do that, but we are just going to make those lines that are there. Okay, so that is the real kind of quick look at how to make shapes within Illustrator.